Crush your enemies.
They drew first blood, not me.
See them driven before you.
Oh, my user.
And hear the lamentation of the women.
But I pity the fool.
Glitter in the dark near the 10-house gate.
Phone home.
They're here.
Oh, real light sleeper, child.
Welcome to Vintage Video, where we're rewatching the 80s so you don't have to. We'll be reviewing every major film release of the 1980s in chronological order, overanalyzing what you've seen and spoiling what you haven't. I'm Patrick O'Reilly.
I'm Jess Bayless.
And I'm Richard Wells.
And today we're discussing Diva, released April 23rd, 1982. It was adapted by Jean-Jacques Beineix and Jean Van Hamme from the novel by Daniel Odier, and additional dialogue from Jean-Jacques Beineix, directed by Jean-Jacques Beineix, and released by Compagnie Commerciale Française Cinématographie. That's my best attempt at a French accent. Never taken a single French class. I suck at it. I'm sorry. In '79, Daniel Odier's novel Diva was published and credited to the pseudonym Delacorta. It's actually one in a series of one-word title books, including Nana, Luna, Lola, Alba, and Vida, following the story's most mystical characters, Alba and Gorodish. The hardest to cast part of Cynthia Hawkins would require a black, bilingual English-French operatic soprano, and they found her, Wilhelmina Fernandez, in the lead of a production of Carmen. The film shot almost entirely in Paris with many beloved landmarks I'll try to count out as we go. What we watched was a gorgeous Blu-ray released by Kino Lorber in 2020. I think it was also a remaster because the opening titles, composed of still frames and very modern text overlay, seem far ahead of its time, especially with the subtle drop shadow on the text. I'm pretty sure these are digital credits in the beginning. Mm-hmm. We see a young man, possibly a delivery boy in a uniform and cap, parking his moped and heading into a concert venue. People are actively applauding a performance on stage. The boy takes a seat in between songs. The walls of the venue look as though they've survived a terrible fire. Editor's note, it was fire damage. This is the Théâtre des Bouts du Nord, which had previously burned down, but during a restoration in the 70s, it was decided not to paint over the purely aesthetic fire damage to preserve the building's history. A woman steps onto the stage and everyone applauds. This is Cynthia Hawkins, played by Wilhelmina Fernandez, in her first and only film role, doing all her own singing. The book's character was supposedly inspired by opera diva Jessie Norman. The conductor strikes up the orchestra and the woman begins singing an operatic piece, specifically Ebbe no andro lontana from the opera Le Wally, French for The Wally. In his lap, we can see the delivery boy is discreetly recording the song on a Nagra reel-to-reel recorder. Two Taiwanese men seated behind him in sunglasses seem to clock the device. The delivery boy is moved to tears by the performance, and at the end of her song, the audience explodes in rapturous applause. After the show, the delivery boy pushes his way through the crowd to speak with the singer in the crowded dressing room. He hands her the playbill to sign, and she asks if his helmet is for a motorcycle, but he admits it's a moped. He tells her he's a postman and that he enjoyed her concert very much. On his way out, he swipes her silver dress from a coat hanger in the dressing room. Later that night, we see him walk the moped into a freight elevator and up into a dark and dirty loft packed with totaled cars. He pushes through hanging plastic sheet doors into his own sort of home. He sleeps on a recliner on a concrete floor and listens back to the recording of the song. The next day, we see the boy roll past the train station, and as a crowd exits the first train, we see one woman walking amongst them through the station barefoot. This train station is the Gare Saint-Lazare. In addition to the missing shoes, the woman seems generally lost. We see a man and woman we'll come to know as informant Krantz and police officer Paula sitting at a table outside a cafe waiting for something to happen. Then we see a car skid up and park half on the sidewalk before two thugs step out in a rush. We'll learn the tall one is Antillais, but I don't think the short one ever gets a name.
Priest. Yeah.
They
Priest
call him
is
Priest
his name?
at
Okay.
the end.
Because
Yeah.
he's credited as like El Curé or something like that.
The tall one at the end refers to him as Priest
Okay,
several
Priest.
times.
All right, I'll say Priest. The thugs quickly locate the barefoot woman at the train station, and as soon as she spots them, she runs. As she hobbles out of the station, she spots an unattended moped idling on the sidewalk, and right above it is a billboard for a movie we've covered on the show. Did you guys spot it?
I did not.
Can't Stop the Music. Krantz and Paula outside the cafe spot the barefoot woman and wonder what she's up to. She's gripping her sides as if in pain with her eyes closed. Crossing the street away from her pursuers, she crashes into the postal delivery boy, but the short thug, Priest, snatches him up by his collar and tells him to forget what he's just seen. Priest claims to be police and waves a badge in the boy's face before collecting the barefoot woman and dragging her back to the car. Krantz and Paula are worried for their apparently apprehended source, but the delivery boy drives off. The barefoot woman manages to break free of their grasp, and instead of catching her again, Priest throws some sort of stabbing instrument through the air into her back, and they drive off without her.
I believe it's an awl.
Yeah, they say it later. Doesn't seem like something police would do, so I'm guessing that was a fake badge. Krantz and Paula run to the woman on the ground, and she appears quite dead, with an awl protruding from her spine. Now we cut to a record store where a girl is moving along the outside wall and tucking a couple albums into a folder in her arms to avoid paying. The cashier is distracted from her shoplifting by a conversation with the delivery boy. This store is called Lido Musique on the Champs-Élysées. As she moves past the register, the manager asks to look in her folded portfolio, assuming she's smuggling merchandise, but it's all nude photographs of her. He flips through them one at a time, and she asks if she can put her clothes back on to leave. He returns the portfolio and apologizes. Outside the music shop, we see a newsstand, and a big printed headline asks who stole the Diva's dress. Of course, we know the delivery boy took it, and he stops to buy a copy of the issue. He makes an effort to catch up with the music thief down the road and asks which albums she stole. He promises he doesn't work for the shop. He asks where she hides the music, and she points out an empty pocket within the cardboard cover of her portfolio. But she keeps the nudes in there to make them embarrassed for asking to check the thing.
But they're also French, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah. You might as well be wearing this in the store. She claims she doesn't steal music for herself, but as a gift to someone she respects. We cut to a dark studio. The walls are painted black, and one of those small rectangular wave-making machines with oil and colored water inside tips back and forth. The girl's nude photographs are tacked up all over a wall in the space, and an ashtray on the coffee table is buried in stubs. Thousands of blue jigsaw puzzle pieces form a mountain on a black floor, and a man sits staring at them in blue jeans, smoking another cigarette. This is the artist she steals the music for, credited as Gorodish, but I never actually caught his name, so I refer to him throughout most of my notes as the Puzzler. The girl glides around the studio apartment on roller skates, complimenting the puzzler. She confesses she was invited to dinner with someone tonight, and we hard cut to a car being demolished in a junkyard with one of those magnetic claw machines. The men operating the machine here are the thugs from the train station, and they assure someone over the phone they had no choice but to do what they did. It was at this point I realized the car they're demolishing is the one they tried to abduct the girl in, so this is evidence destruction. They don't work here. At the police station, Paula and a man named Mortier consult with the commissioner to confirm the victim's name, Nadia Kalanski. Evidently, the woman was a missing prostitute with a police record for her involvement in drug trafficking and prostitution. Mortier seems to be heading an independent investigation of some large drug ring, and the police are annoyed that he never brings them live witnesses, only corpses. The commissioner asks why they were present for this murder. Paula explains they were invited by her informant Krantz to meet the woman at the cafe. When the commissioner sits on a nearby desk, it squeaks under him because he sat right on a Bambi birthday card with a squeaker folded into it. Everyone struggles to stifle their laughter. Paula's informant Krantz claims Nadia had information on Antillais' drug network and was prepared to talk before she was killed. When asked why she trusted him, Krantz admitted they had a relationship in the past. The commissioner claims Paula's witness is worthless too because this guy has a criminal record of exposing himself to minors in public. Krantz explodes with anger at the accusation and says he deserves credit for delivering the cassette to Mortier and Paula. This is the first the commissioner has heard of a cassette, and Paula explains that as the woman stumbled out of the train station, she dropped a recording of her information in the satchel of a postman's idling moped. That night, we see the postman on his moped riding a freight elevator with the girl from the record store riding behind him. He takes her to the same garage of wrecked cars where we saw him sleeping last night. I forget when we learn it, but the delivery boy is Jules and the music thief is Alba. Alba is impressed with the makes and models of the wrecked cars Jules has collected, or that were here when he found the place, probably. She sees a mural of a car painted on the wall floating into the sky and tethered with a rope to the ground. Alba loves the painting and compliments the previous tenant of this loft for having painted them. Jules offers her a soda and she demands a bendy straw. In the absence of a straw, he dips some sort of automotive tube in her soda, and when she takes a sip, she says she can taste the gasoline.
Well, yeah, but he was wanting to put it with a radiator hose. I was like, that's not better.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess it's a little better, but...
Yeah, still gross. This was in a car. She starts pushing buttons on his Nagra, and he shoos her away to avoid breaking it. She spots a painting on the wall of the opera singer from the opening scene and identifies her as Cynthia Hawkins. She notices Jules staring at the likeness and guesses he's in love with the singer, but he denies it. He walks her across the loft and puts some headphones on her to hear the latest recording. Sitting on a couch together, she takes off his watch and tosses it to the floor to replace it with a better one, a Rolex, which she of course stole. Before he plays her the song, he explains it's called La Wally by Catalini, and in the context of the story, there's a woman in the mountains who wants to die because she's broken-hearted. He translates the Italian lyrics for her before he even starts the song. He explains that as the song ends, the broken-hearted woman jumps off a cliff down an avalanche corridor. They sit and listen to the song together. Jules watches her closely, hoping the music affects her like it did him. Her eyes stay closed, but she reaches for his hand. We cut now to a local fairground where Krantz, somewhat resembling a French Geoffrey Rush, is manning a game booth with a spinning wheel of prizes. An older woman spins and wins a plaster bust of Beethoven, but before Krantz can even hand it to her, he's stabbed in the back through a beaded curtain with the same weapon used to kill Nadia earlier. The husband customer urges the woman away from the booth with their prize, and they don't even seem to notice the man operating the game has been killed. The same thugs from before wander past the dead man and collect the prize the woman left behind. Priest admits he doesn't care for Beethoven and drops the bust in a puddle on the ground where it shatters. Back at Jules's loft, just as he'd hoped, his new girlfriend appreciates the music and asks to borrow the song. We cut back to the strange black studio with the tilting wave machine.
I don't know if I'd call Alba his girlfriend.
Well, at least love interest at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, it's a little unclear her relationship with any of these guys in the movie.
That's true. She's just kind of floating around.
Yeah.
The girl walks the length of a long room toward the silent puzzler from earlier. Now he's taking a hot bath at the far end of the room with no privacy shades around him. He lectures her for having stayed out so late and promises to punish her if it happens again by abandoning her on the streets of her home country, Vietnam. She assures him she's had an awful day too and hopes to make it better by playing Jules's recording of the opera singer. As soon as the song starts, he recognizes not just the piece, but the artist, and commends her for locating a recording of Hawkins' work, which is notoriously and exclusively performed live. Which also means that he must have seen her live to recognize her voice now. Alba refuses to surrender the source of the tape. Jules sees the newspaper about the stolen dress again and wraps the dress around his neck like a scarf before going out for a night ride on his moped. He's propositioned by several women of the night. While he's out, we see the Taiwanese men in reflective aviator sunglasses who are seated behind him at the concert, sneaking into his empty home.
Who are these guys?
They're Taiwanese record producers that want the recording they saw him making at that show.
Okay, so they're not associated with any of
drug ring, any of that.
Okay, there's
Correct.
just coincidentally
there's two tapes
bad
and there's
guys.
two teams that want the tapes badly.
Yeah.
Okay.
The confusion is the recording. They just keep talking about the recording.
Right.
Essentially, the plot boils down to this unsuspecting delivery boy was saddled with two MacGuffins at the same time, unknowingly.
Right.
And there's two teams out there that will pay all the price in the world for them.
Right.
Off screen, they make loud noises, and we cut back to Jules with his chosen prostitute, who also happens to closer resemble Cynthia Hawkins than the other girls who approached him. He asks her to wear the dress he stole from the concert performance, as she strips down to nothing under it. The camera rests on a mannequin beside the bed, wearing Jules's moped helmet, and we jump cut right to him arriving home to find his loft in shambles. Everything is thrown all over the floor, but the most valuable items he has, the concert recording, the cassette of evidence, and the stolen dress, were not here for them to find.
Well, they weren't interested in the dress.
Presumably they weren't here for the dress since, as far as we know, nobody knows he took that yet. He cries in his destroyed home, and we cut to him consulting friends on this mystery. They assure him it was the police, since the police are looking for a postman on a moped for some reason, and Jules assumes they're on his trail in search of the dress. But they have been sent by the police commissioner because supposedly this evidence tape was put in a moped satchel, so they're checking all the postmen.
I do love that he just crawls into bed with them.
Right, yeah.
With his helmet still on. And they're just
You
like,
gotta be safe.
Yeah.
okay, well, you know, it's French. We're all French.
So, can I sleep with you guys? Did you bring protection? He hides out at his friend's place for a few days, and then the friend reports that the same two men keep stopping by the postal dispatch looking for him, but we don't know if this is the thugs or the aviators. He asks his friend for money and to trade vehicles temporarily, and the guy gives him a quick lesson on his motorcycle. Before he leaves on the bike, he remembers he left his riding gloves and the satchel on his moped, and when he collects them, he finds the cassette tape and tucks it in his pocket. Probably he assumes Alba put it in here, because he's like, oh, she likes music.
And also, he probably does record things on tape occasionally in this, like, oh, one of my tapes is in here for some reason.
We cut back to Jules's ruined place as Paula and another policeman we'll come to know as Zatopek inspect the ruins. She points out that Krantz and Nadia were clearly killed by the same person since both were stabbed in the spine with awls.
It's just like that it's not the same awl.
Yeah.
He just keeps going out and buying
He just buys a bunch of awls?
You buy them in bulk and they're cheaper.
I don't know what happened. I threw an awl at the guy, hit him right in the spine. Happens every time. I throw it, hits him in the spine, they're dead instantly. I got to buy a ton of these things. I got to get them by the dozen. I need all awls, please. Sometime later, we see Jules walking right into a hotel room carrying a bouquet of flowers. We hear Cynthia Hawkins' voice emanating from a nearby bathroom. She's startled to find another person in her room and asks who he is in English and then French.
Who are you? Qui êtes-vous?
When she sees the bouquet, she compliments the flowers and asks who sent them. She's prepared to offer him a tip, but he refuses it and instead produces from inside his jacket the stolen dress. Only now does she recognize him as the moped postman who came to see her after the recent show. And he promises he cleaned it, and it's like, okay, what did you fucking do to this dress then? Like, literally, why would you tell me that you cleaned it? Unless you had either worn it or had someone else wear it.
Yeah, and it doesn't matter if you had it pressed, if you just balled it back up into a ball.
Yeah.
I don't want to hear what you did to this. I don't even want it back, probably. She tells him she's not famous enough to deal with people stealing her things and announces her intention to report him to the hotel detective. He begs her not to do that as she hangs up the phone to hear his story. He's never done anything like this for any other performer, but he saw her last year in Munich and found himself captivated. She's flattered by how far he's driven on his moped just for a chance to hear her sing.
So you are a real fan.
A bell rings and she informs him she's late for a press conference. He recounts for her the songs she sang and the dress she wore for the Berlin performance, and even the memory of a child throwing roses from the audience. That night she refused an encore, and so he sought her out to hear more at a second venue. She asks his name and finds Jules to be an old-fashioned one. Later we see him leaving her room and nodding with a smile to a maid in the hall. As he comes down the stairwell, he sees through a window the Taiwanese men in aviator sunglasses sitting together at a table on the patio. At her press conference, Hawkins is asked to explain why she won't record her voice, and she believes the audience is part of the performance, and without them, any recording would be false.
Music, it comes and goes. Don't try to keep it.
They ask what her manager thinks of her refusal to sell recordings, and then what she thinks of bootleg recordings of her own performances. She considers them theft and rape. We cut back to the black studio. The puzzler is wearing a scuba mask while he cuts onions to keep his eyes from tearing up, and Jules stands behind him, but Alba is perched atop the refrigerator. She informs the puzzler that Jules has a date with Cynthia Hawkins tonight if the timing works out. The puzzler gives Jules a little cooking lesson about whatever it is he's creating here. He cuts a baguette open down the middle with a sharp paring knife that made me nervous because he's like cutting right towards his fingers the whole time. He spreads a layer of butter along the inside of the baguette. After turning over the record they're listening to, Alba returns to her perch atop the fridge. Next, the puzzler opens a huge can of caviar and asks if Jules realizes how expensive it is. He doesn't mean the caviar, he means the recording of Hawkins' performance. Not only has she never been committed to physical media before, but that performance in particular has been declared by critics to be her finest. Jules explains it's not for money. All he cares about is music for himself, and that's all. The girl tells the puzzler Jules has many more tapes, but he explains they were all just destroyed when his loft was raided. Jules says the Nagra was the most expensive thing left in his apartment, and they didn't take it, so clearly they didn't find what they were looking for.
Do you remember the last time that we had a room full of recordings that were all destroyed, but none of the equipment harmed?
I do. Do you? I bet you don't. The most recent.
Oh, no.
Was it the Woody Allen movie?
No.
What is that? Not Bananas.
Sleeper.
Sleeper.
That did have a room full of magnetic tape. That's one that I was going to get to later.
I know you're probably thinking of Blowout.
Yeah.
That fucking tape you gave me didn't have nothing on it.
All my tapes are blank. Because somebody erased it, they've erased all my tapes.
Blowout is the first of 3 examples of people's tape libraries being raided in search of evidence. Do you know the second and third example that we've covered so far?
It's not One Trick Pony.
No, the
but he did take
the conversation.
They did steal all of his tapes.
Yeah,
that's true. So I guess that technically does count. But we've had more recent movies in the 80s. One of them was Chuck Norris vehicle.
Silent Rage?
Nope.
No, that was a different Chuck Norris movie. What was the other one?
An Eye for an Eye.
Look at this. The only things I know they took are some of my tapes.
Your tapes?
I have sound effects on cassettes.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I was thinking of Eyewitness. I'm like, that he was not.
But then since then, we've had another one.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh.
It's another murder mystery where they had recordings of phone calls and someone took all the guy's tapes so he couldn't build the case. They all worked for the same team.
Was that Absent a Mouse?
Nope. Richard Libertini was the audio guy who had all his tapes stolen.
Oh, damn. What was that? Burt Reynolds, where
Yeah.
they're watching the girl apartment across the street.
Oh, what was the name of that movie?
Everyone gets sucked into space. Fincher Brothers sucked into space.
Yeah.
What does he say?
It's coming. It's coming.
What does he say?
Sharky's machine.
That's right. There you go. Jules suspects the cops are after him, and he mentions the girl he saw arrested earlier this week outside the train station. The puzzler happened to see that story in the paper and informs Jules the girl wasn't arrested, but broke free of her captives and was stabbed to death in the street. Those men weren't police. We cut now to a car in a parking structure, and in the front seat we see the thugs who killed Nadia waiting for someone. When a car pulls up beside them, they talk about how they've taken care of all the loose ends that might unravel their drug trafficking operation, and when we finally rack focus to the second party, we see it's the police commissioner, Saporta, who is urging Paula and Mortier off the case. Turns out he didn't want them to uncover his own corruption, but it would honestly be more of a twist if he were completely innocent. Saporta has probably been using their leads to target witnesses for years, which is why he complains their witnesses keep ending up dead. Oh, what a weird coincidence. Everyone you give me a list of dies the next day. The commissioner orders the thugs to locate the missing testimony cassette, the last smoking gun they haven't uncovered. The thugs doubt it's necessary to track down since the postman doesn't even know he has it, but the commissioner insists, especially because he knows others are on Jules' trail as well. Possibly he's referring to the men in aviators. Back in the black studio, the puzzler is half done with his massive puzzle. Alba skates up to a mirror and asks Jules if she's getting old. He says she doesn't age, but he has to leave soon for his date. He asks her to hold on to the bootleg recording for safety's sake, and she goes to get him his jacket and helmet to leave. When she lifts the jacket, the evidence cassette slips out of the pocket, and she returns it to the jacket.
I guess that's just to remind us that it's still there.
And I guess so that we know it's with him, so it's not in the apartment. Through a window, she looks down on the street and watches him ride away. Someone in a parked car outside follows him at a healthy distance. Jules parks outside a bar and looks around inside for his date. At first, all he hears are noisy arcade machines, but then a chirping laugh comes through the door. She has a companion, Nadia, and introduces him to Jules. Apparently she just bought a lot of jewelry from this man, and eventually she bids him farewell to be alone with Jules. I worried at first that it's like, oh, I brought someone along in case you're a fucking psychopath.
Yeah.
And he's going to be with us the whole time. It's like, oh, I thought this was a date, but then she excuses the guy right away. Nadia starts whistling in a bird call and withdraws a plastic bird from his pocket as a parting gift for Jules. Later that night, they walk under the Arc de Triomphe, and Jules holds an umbrella over Cynthia's head. Later still, we see them sitting separately beside a pond in a park, and she's surprised when he lays a hand on her shoulder, but she smiles. We jump through time again to her sleeping in her hotel room bed, but he's not in bed with her. He's sleeping on a short couch under a nearby window. Back at the black studio, the puzzler answers a phone call from the men in aviators parked downstairs, offering to buy the bootleg recording. Unclear why they're reaching out to this man to buy it. Maybe they think Jules already sold it to him. The puzzler is hesitant to commit to a sale, and they claim they can wait him out. We cut to Cynthia and Jules having breakfast in her hotel room. She crosses the room to the piano, and he offers to leave while she rehearses, but she appreciates the company. Her hotel room phone rings, and someone is calling for Jules. He assures her he didn't tell anyone he was coming here, and when he takes the phone, it's the men in aviators looking to acquire his recording. They threaten to share its existence with the artist herself, for which she would surely never forgive Jules. When we see their half of the conversation, the men are now parked downstairs outside the hotel. Cynthia prepares a bath and asks Jules how hot he can take it. She sees he's upset by the phone call and asks if everything's okay, but he changes the subject. Later we see her rehearsing at the piano, and Jules' hair is wet as though he's taken a full bath. As she sings, the aviator men move down the hotel hallway and knock on a door asking for Cynthia's manager, Mr. Weinstadt. Cynthia stops hard in the middle of a song to ask Jules if something's wrong. She senses his anxiety without facing him. Again, he assures her everything is okay. We cut back to the corrupt commissioner as he's provided a disappointing update that no progress has been made locating Jules. He relays to Mortier that this whole mess started when a prostitute tried to quit her job and told a story about a drug/sex trafficking organization, but she was stabbed by her own pimp in public as an example to any future defectors. The commissioner claims that she likely fabricated the organization purely to recruit police protection and underestimated their incompetence. Mortier worries that Jules will soon be found dead with an awl in his back. He shares with the commissioner that the moped was found without a cassette in the satchel, and Jules allegedly fled the scene on a friend's motorcycle.
So that this is the fabricated story that the commissioner wants.
Yeah, he wants Mortier to drop the case because he's like, there's no ring. Right. She told you that because she wanted cops there to help her, and they didn't even help her because they're idiots.
Yeah.
We cut back to Cynthia's hotel where her manager, Mr. Weinstadt, informs her they've been contacted by men from Taiwan claiming possession of a bootleg recording of her most recent recital. Cynthia admits this isn't the first pirate recording of her voice, but Weinstadt explains it's the most perfect recording captured thus far. Third row center on professional equipment. The men from Taiwan are demanding she sign over exclusive rights to it, or they'll release the recording without her permission, which is only an option for them because, at least at the time, Taiwan had no law against bootlegging media. I don't think it does still. The deal still makes no sense because Cynthia has nothing to gain either way. She doesn't want to sell recordings of her voice, and she abhors piracy. Even if she gave them exclusive rights, they could still pirate the song and keep all the profits because they've already admitted they don't have to abide by international law.
Yeah, plus, they only have one recording of one song.
Right. Overhearing this conversation from the next room, Jules fidgets nervously, clearly regretting putting her in this situation and wishing he'd kept the recording to himself. But I'm pretty sure the men from Taiwan saw him record it that night, so they would still know even if he never mentioned it to anyone. Predictably, she refuses to submit to their blackmail, especially since she has nothing to gain from cooperating. Her manager warns her that the bootleg may not be up to their standards and would be a poor representation of her performance. But isn't that a good thing? If you want to hear perfection, you have to hear it live. The whole reason the recording is useful at all is that it's such high quality. It totally defeats the purpose to release it in a substandard pirated format. It's like if someone threatened Warner Brothers that they were going to release Batgirl in a theater shot handheld camera format. It's like, people don't want to see that, so go for it.
I'd watch it, though.
Would you?
I've watched cams
But
before.
wouldn't you also follow it up by seeing it when it came out on Blu-ray later?
Yes, probably.
They wouldn't lose any money from that. Her manager insists that while her strict personal principles are very popular in the press, there comes a time to concede and cast them aside to keep your career afloat. He makes a vague mention of a similar situation after her performance in Munich, and the comment gets Jules' attention. I think we are to presume that he recorded or attempted to record that concert as well, because it's the only other one he's mentioned attending. Even Cynthia seems to catch the coincidence and looks through the communicating door at the nervous Jules sitting at her piano in the next room. Her manager demands a response by tomorrow and seems to threaten to part ways with her if she can't see his logic. When he leaves, Jules tries to comfort her as she cries. She still refuses to cooperate with the blackmailers. All Jules has to do is go back to the black studio and destroy the recording if he wants to spare her this embarrassment and assuage his guilt.
The recording would have to be destroyed, and the Taiwanese men would have to believe that the recording has been destroyed.
Well, it doesn't matter if they believe it or not. They can't do anything
if
with
they
it.
don't have the recording.
But they can still. But they don't have it now, and they're pressuring her.
Right, but right now they at least have the leverage of they know where it is and they could break in and steal it if they wanted to. That is, unless the puzzler has already sold the physical copy to the men from Taiwan and aviators. Jules says he has to go, and as he walks home, we see Paula and Zatopek waiting in a car across the street. They're deep in conversation and only notice Jules leaving when he starts up his motorcycle. They're not discreet at all, tailing the boy, but riding as he is on a motorcycle, he has many opportunities to lose them. He rides down narrow corridors, downstairs, through doors, and into the subway, where we see another poster for a movie we've covered. Did you catch it?
Nope.
Little Darlings.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Jules rides his motorcycle down more and more stairs until he manages to board a departing subway car just as it pulls away from the station. Zatopek jumps onto the back of the subway car and pounds on the window for a passenger to let him in. When he flashes his badge to the passenger presents his veteran's identification, evidently as a refusal to help.
I went down a little Google rabbit hole trying to figure this out.
It's like, oh, do veterans hate police back there?
Yeah, well, okay. So apparently there's a long history of this. There's actually like two sort of police forces in France. There's like this, I don't remember what they're called, but there's like a military police and then there's like the regular police. The regular police only take care of cities and the other guys take care of the rural areas and are part of like the military.
Oh,
and
okay.
so like all the military veterans like don't like the regular police guys. And
it's like Super Troopers when they fight with all the, who are they fighting with? Because there's the highway patrol and there's the local police. At the next stop, Jules rides off the subway car and straight up the stairs, and there's no way that this cop could possibly be keeping up with him on foot, and yet somehow he is. It actually kind of ruins the scene that we're expected to believe this dude can run upstairs as fast as someone riding a motorcycle full speed.
They also, like, at one point, well, maybe you're getting to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
I know exactly what you're going to say.
Jules should have been confronting obstacles this whole time that were slowing him down. When the bike finally dies under him, he hops off of it and continues on foot and nonsensically charging the wrong way up a down escalator.
Right. And then the guy behind him follows on the downside.
Yeah.
Like, all you had to do
was go around.
Was go on the upside and you would have beat him to the top.
Yeah. But Jules hops off to continue on foot but still, the cop is hot on his heels as soon as he gets to the top of this thing. Somehow, the policeman who kept pace with a speeding motorcycle up 20 flights of stairs loses the kid in 30 seconds on foot. As soon as he gets outside, he's like, where'd he go? No idea.
If I was him, I would have been running down the up escalator.
Yeah, he definitely went this way.
I guess my only way, and this is pretty weak, my only way is that Jules, as a result of riding the moped, had more stamina to make it up those stairs faster than
maybe,
him, who's been running this whole time. And so finally...
But it should have been like crowded with people coming down.
Yeah.
Like it should have been like a salmon going upstream. It doesn't make sense that he's able to outpace this cop so clearly when they're in the same shot, but then they're all constantly right next to each other.
But also, yes, go up the up escalator.
Yeah, not the down. Later that night, Jules arrives to the black studio, but sees the men from Taiwan sitting in a car outside and leaves. Inside, Alba takes photos of herself against a hanging backdrop, and the puzzler puzzles. Without anyone to turn to, Jules approaches the prostitute whose services he engaged a few nights back and begs for the keys to her apartment so he has somewhere to stay tonight. She hands them over reluctantly. When Jules catches his breath in her apartment, he again finds the tape in his jacket pocket and out of curiosity plugs it into a tape player. Before we even hear the recording start, we cut back to the prostitute about to make a phone call in a hotel lobby. Presumably, the people following Jules already saw them together and offered her money to give up his location if she ever saw him again. Back in her room, Jules listens to Nadia's testimony from the tape. She starts by confessing she tried to kill herself, but her pimp wouldn't let her because she didn't have his permission. She explains that Jean Saporta is the commissioner of the local criminal division and that for 8 years he's been heading the prostitution ring between Africa and Europe, trading girls for drugs. We cut back to the prostitute and another working girl as she hangs up the phone. She clearly feels guilty for turning Jules in, but her friend reminds her the alternative is getting stabbed in the back in the street like their friend Nadia. Back in the room, Nadia's recording says that nearly every black prostitute in Paris is under the commissioner's thumb, and Jules seems to realize for the first time the danger he's in. It's time to get the fuck out of here. He collects the tape and rushes down to the lobby just in time to avoid the assassin thugs as they're coming in. They quickly determine the room is empty and turn around in search of Jules. The kid is flying through the park and across the road, narrowly avoiding getting hit by a speeding car. Did you see how close he got to getting hit by this car? That was not planned for sure, because the person slams on their brakes and the car fishtails as it's skidding to stop from hitting him. The thugs actually have him in their sights and chase him down the sidewalk. Jules speeds down a stairwell to an underground parking structure, and of course, their car can follow him here. Go somewhere that cars can't go. He didn't think this through. When they find him again, Priest leans out the passenger side window to shoot at him and hits several parked cars before clipping the boy's shoulder. Jules still manages a slow escape, and Priest hops out of the car to follow on foot. Jules limps down a hallway adjacent to a local mall and collapses against a pinball machine in a crowded arcade. He stands up and falls against a woman playing some kind of attack helicopter game as she gives up her seat to the boy, assuming him to be a handsy drunk. Moving through the same arcade, Priest grabs another kid in a similar jacket and holds a sharp tool to his neck for a moment before letting him go. He walks right past the helicopter game, not noticing Jules slumped down in the seat. We cut back to the puzzler as he plugs the final piece into his massive puzzle. The man's phone rings, and Jules tells him he's being hunted by the killers from the St. Lazare murder because of the cassette from the moped satchel. The puzzler tells him to stay put, and Jules begs him to tell Alba, his girlfriend, to come get him before he faints. The puzzler grabs a plastic poncho and leaves to collect Jules. He gives the phone to Alba so she can tell Jules a story while he waits.
Alba is so, disconnected.
Right? She's not panicked or anything. She's just like, oh, okay, I got a good story. Here. She describes driving fast in a convertible with long scarves. It sounds like she's describing specifically the mural from his ransacked apartment, but it kind of reminded me of the story that we talked about in Four Friends of Isadora Duncan, where she was driving in a convertible with a long scarf and it got caught on the wheels and killed her. Like, that was her true life story, how she died. But luckily, that's not how this story goes. We see the puzzler swerve out of his own driveway in a classic car and somehow escape without drawing the attention of the men from Taiwan. Jules listens to Alba's story in the arcade phone booth through a receiver now soaked in his own blood. He looks pale and he leans against the wall and sinks to the floor just as Priest, the gunman, finally locates him. The priest withdraws a large knife and opens the phone booth door, but before he can do anything, the puzzler is magically here already and unleashes a small burst of spray from a bottle under the man's nose, knocking him out instantly.
And at this point, at first, I'm like, this guy's just an eccentric rich guy, you know? The
and
caviar, the weird mask while you're cutting onions, and now... What did he even spray? It didn't kill the guy. It's an atomizer, spray?
And when he squeezes it, clearly none of the particles even go in the guy's nose. It was just literally close enough to him to make him go unconscious instantly.
Who is this guy?
I don't know, but him and Alba are the center of the book series. They're the two characters that are the through line for this whole series of books.
This is interesting.
Yeah. I would love for them to make more movies about Alba and Gorodish.
Yeah.
As far as I know, there aren't any more adaptations, though. The puzzler drops the thug and picks up the phone to let Alba know he has Jules and they're on their way. He tells her to get a specific bag and to meet them on the street outside the Black Studio's back door to avoid the men parked outside. I need a little black fucking medical book.
What are you looking for? A little black fucking medical book. It's like a textbook they give to nurses.
With the adrenaline shot?
So he knows how to do it. The puzzler wraps Jules in a blue poncho and sets him in the back seat of his car. Listening to another section of Nadia's testimony on the car's tape deck, she explains she was the commissioner's mistress. We see the puzzler's car parked way out in the middle of nowhere, and they've already collected Alba. He opens the bag she brought to perform emergency surgery in his own back seat on the nearly dead Jules. While the puzzler works, Jules accuses him of selling his recording of Cynthia's show to the men from Taiwan, but Alba holds up Jules' tape to prove that no one else has it. The men from Taiwan are bluffing. Even as the puzzler operates, he instructs Alba to drive so they're always moving. She drives all night, and by early dawn they arrive at a lighthouse. This lighthouse is the film's only non-Paris location, the Phare de Gatteville on the Normandy coast, supposedly the third tallest lighthouse in the world, accessible to the public. The interior is actually a museum. The puzzler carries the boy inside and they start a fire in the building's fireplace. Hours later, the puzzler leaves by himself with Nadia's recorded testimony. In the lighthouse kitchen, Alba seems at first to be preparing breakfast for herself and Jules, but suddenly she's tucking apples into her shirt as fake boobs. We've all done it. The camera tracks down to the floor for some reason, and we see a stain by the corner of the table, which I thought must be very important, but in retrospect, I guess not. It's just a stain on the floor. She brings Jules breakfast in bed, including the boob apples, which I would have insisted on. Alba calls the lighthouse a magic castle. She stands at the window watching the sunrise over the ocean and removes her shirt to bathe in its light for a moment. Jules asks where his tape went, not specifying which one, and she invites him to the window. Back in the city, the puzzler speaks with Jules' prostitute in search of Antillais, the name mentioned on the recording as being in charge of all the Parisian prostitutes from the commissioner's trafficking ring. As a reminder, Antillais is the taller of the two assassin thugs with the slick back hair. Somehow, the puzzler arranges a meeting with both thugs and offers to sell them a tape, and more specifically to sell a tape to their boss. When the puzzler returns to his apartment, his puzzle has been disassembled on the floor, and the last few pieces we saw him plug into it have been torn violently out of the puzzle and set on a thick stack of American $50 bills. He seems pleased by the payment and answers his ringing phone. The men from Taiwan downstairs ask if he found their down payment, and it's clear the aviator men broke in to leave money, hoping he would hand over the concert recording. Without responding, the puzzler tosses their meager down payment out the window at their car, but a dog scoops it off the ground and carries it to a nearby blind panhandler right in front of them. The street performer collects the cash and walks away.
I don't think he could be blind, because he gets excited when he saw it on the ground.
The thugs confer again with the commissioner and explain the puzzler has heard the recording, but they can't know where he's keeping it. The commissioner says he'll deal with the man himself, and then he'll call these thugs to bring the puzzler back to the black studio and plant a fake audio tape on him, since the police are already looking for Nadia's testimony on a similar tape. Later, we see the commissioner drive to a parking lot on the roof of a building. He finds the puzzler's empty Citroen and climbs into it, pushing a cassette into the tape deck, and he begins driving the car away. The recording on the tape is the voice of the puzzler welcoming the commissioner to his Citroen. He explains this particular model was a popular car for police and gangsters in the past, a fitting vehicle for a corrupt commissioner, both a policeman and a gangster.
Now, this is also the same car that's painted on the wall of the studio,
right.
Isn't it?
Yep.
Yeah.
Which seems like
I didn't notice that till later.
little bit of a coincidence.
Maybe.
Or like
everything's mystical, magical.
It doesn't seem relevant to like have him have this car on his wall for any reason.
No, but I think that is part of what drew Alba to him, is that she recognized the car and she was like, I know somebody with this car.
I know somebody with multiple cars.
Yeah. Apparently, the commissioner has received specific instructions on where to drive from Antillais, but they aren't mentioned in the recording. When he's finally parked, the commissioner is instructed to leave the keys on the dashboard and exit the vehicle.
I like that the tape says, like, you are now here.
Right,
it's
it
like,
knows exactly where
what?
he is. I timed this out. I did this 12 times yesterday, so you better fucking take the same streets I did. A voice from a neighboring warehouse invites the man inside. He carries with him a silver briefcase, but under the driver's seat he leaves a small box wrapped in newspaper and twine. The commissioner is coached by the disembodied voice all around the warehouse until he comes to a red case sitting on a table in a clearing under what looks like a stage with mannequins holding musical instruments. As the commissioner approaches the table, he notices a handheld tape player descending from the ceiling on a string, and it's currently playing Nadia's recorded testimony. The tape is paused, and the first voice returns to instruct the commissioner to empty his pockets, remove his jacket, and locate a metal detector in the red box to prove he's unarmed. The commissioner is told to leave his briefcase open, full of what look like silver bars beside a nearby pillar.
Yeah, like silver gold. It was hard to tell with the lighting, but...
Once he has complied, the tape player is lowered further and the commissioner collects the tape within. Suddenly, the puzzler is standing here in front of him and invites him to listen to the entire tape if he so pleases. The commissioner jokes that for all that silver, he deserves the case too, and the puzzler frisbees it to him. Included in the case were photographs of the commissioner and Nadia together, which this man would never have allowed to be taken in the first place. He burns them.
This is kind of a point to make. The recording...
is useless without the photographs.
Well, because it's not just recorded. There's like an affidavit that signs that the recording is authentic. And that was because it was the photograph that proves that they were a couple, but then a signed document saying that I recorded this tape, and he burns both of those things.
Right.
And that's an important note.
Because now the evidence is not useful.
Correct.
When the puzzler turns to leave, he's confronted by the Taiwanese agents and aviators who assume he has just sold the recording of Cynthia's performance. They're furious to have been cut out of the deal and hold guns on the commissioner and puzzler together. One of the men cracks the commissioner on the back of the head with the butt of his gun and steals the tape of Nadia's testimony, presuming it's the concert performance. They remind the puzzler he's already been paid and he shouldn't complain. They hijack his car and leave him with the commissioner's briefcase of silver. The puzzler assures them he has no qualms with their taking the commissioner's tape. Back in the warehouse, the commissioner withdraws a small remote detonator and extends the antenna fully before pressing the button, triggering the package under the driver's seat of the puzzler's car and explodifying the Taiwanese bootleggers with the tape of Nadia's testimony they stole. Because he assumed that the puzzler, Gorodish, would do this.
Right.
And so he brought a backup in case he got stranded here without his money and without his evidence.
Well, I don't know if he assumed that there'd be a double cross, but he certainly thought that Gorodish
would probably take everything. Yeah. And if he does, I will kill him.
Yeah.
And I'll go fish that piping hot silver out of his car.
Like Goldfinger with the crushed
Yeah,
car.
Exactly. The puzzler, though, somehow anticipated literally all of this and opens a nearby garage to reveal a second identical classic car for him to drive back home in. This didn't have to be the same car. These cars are so expensive. What are you doing? You knew that they were going to come there and hit him and then blow up? You knew there was going to be a bomb in the car? What are you doing?
He's like Odenkirk in that I think you should leave. It's like, I own 2 of every classic car.
It's way too far in advance thinking. The puzzler calls the lighthouse to check on Jules, and Alba explains he's returning the pirated recording of Cynthia's music. The puzzler fears the commissioner or others from his organization will kill the boy, mistaking the tape for Nadia's testimony. You just left the commissioner unconscious in a warehouse. Go back and stab him to death if you're so worried about it. Just as they pull up to Cynthia's hotel, the thugs bash Jules' taxi driver, possibly to death, and then steal the car to take the boy hostage. Up in her room, a member of Cynthia's staff confirms her plan to leave town immediately following tonight's concert. The thugs leave the unconscious or dead taxi driver out on the street with a flaming liquor bottle in his pocket, and seconds after they pull away, it explodes. Paula and Zatopek are basically living in Jules' apartment, and the phone there starts to ring. Zatopek is being called away by the commissioner to summarize a case file, and so he leaves her here alone.
Well, so I think that the commissioner did not know they were both there.
Exactly. Back in the apartment for the first time since the start of the film, I noticed the surreal mural on the wall appears to be the puzzler's car specifically. Of course, as soon as she's alone, Paula hears people coming inside. In the elevator, we see the thugs are bringing Jules back up to his own apartment. Unclear still if the commissioner intended to strand Paula here, or if he didn't realize she and her partner were staking the place out together. The thugs drag Jules into the loft at gunpoint, and he struggles against them the whole time. The camera pans up to the mural to remind us of an interesting detail. One of the doors of the car floating in the sky is open, and inside we can see a girl lying on her back hanging out of the car frightened. No idea who this represents, because Alba doesn't seem scared of anything and she's perfectly safe. The men stand Jules up against the wall beside a hanging poster for Cynthia's recent performance, and they toss the commissioner's blank tape at the kid's feet. Well, it's not a blank tape. It's a fake evidence tape.
Yeah. It's got a woman recorded on it.
Right. They instruct him to pick the tape up, presumably to collect his fingerprints on it. They ask him to plug the tape into his own tape deck, and then they drag him full speed across the apartment through streams of hanging magnetic tape from the first time it was ransacked. Do you guys recall the last time we saw a room so densely littered with magnetic tape?
Sleeper.
Nope, more recent than that.
Oh.
They came to a guy's house. He was offering to record a band, and his whole house was covered in magnetic tape.
Oh, crap.
One of your guys' favorite movies of the year.
Yeah,
on accident.
I know exactly what it is now.
What is accidentally one of your favorite movies of the year? What are you mad is one of your favorite movies of the year, according to your chart?
Splits?
Splits is correct.
It's not that far out, but yeah.
Backing away from the thugs, Jules comes up against a chain around an open elevator shaft. The thugs unclick the chain and tell him to jump down. When Priest jabs a screwdriver against the boy's neck to coax him down, the thug suddenly recoils in pain and stumbles incapacitated over the edge past the boy. From above, we see him drop several stories into the shaft and the dark shadows at the bottom. Now, we see Paula hiding in the corner of the room and taking a second shot at the tall thug's leg to take him down. When the man tries to reach for his gun on the ground, Paula kicks it across the room and the lights cut out. Suddenly the elevator is engaged, and as it rises to Jules's floor, still carrying the dead thug, we can see the back of another man coming up with it. He steps off the elevator and flicks the lights on to reveal himself as the commissioner. He orders Paula to take the boy to the next room, and when Saporta has Antillais alone, he nonsensically sends the elevator car back to the basement. This is only to set something up later. I don't know why he does this. When Antillais fears for his life, he goes again for his own gun, and the commissioner shoots the man over and over until he collapses against the tape deck with the fake testimony recording. Every comment that previously incriminated the commissioner now incriminates Antillais. The whole tape has been edited or recorded with a different actress.
Correct.
Basically,
who's
again, saying that it was all his idea instead of the commissioner's idea now. Overhearing the recording in the next room, Jules shares with Paula the difference between this tape and the original recording. Antillais was not the mastermind. It was Commissioner Saporta.
La cassette. Saporta. C'est Saporta.
Paula is shocked, but before she can act on the revelation, Saporta is here with his gun drawn and willingly confirms Jules' correction. He shoots Antillais a few more times and then tosses the emptied gun across the room to them. Then he puts his own gun in Antillais' hand to fire on them and complete the illusion that all three of these characters died in a gunfight with each other. Jules screams just as the light clicks off again, and Saporta fires around into the darkness. Reaching out for the subtle red glow of the light switch, Saporta realizes too late it's no longer hanging against the wall, and in attempting to push the button, he throws himself off balance and falls back down the elevator shaft. Another hand clicks the lights on, and we see the puzzler moved the switch to lure Saporta to his demise.
Try to land on Lenny's carcass.
Exactly. Paula and Jules slowly rise from their hiding places behind one of the totaled vehicles and don't even see the puzzler leave. They just spot the swinging chain blocking the elevator shaft. Possibly a second elevator shaft, because we never saw anyone hang the chain back up, and he's the only body on the elevator, even though nobody ever moved Priest's body. Maybe he just fell from a different side into the shaft, but it doesn't explain the missing body. Paula makes a joke about how crazy it is that women don't have fun working as police officers. We cut to a large open stage with the curtains wide, revealing the full backstage as Cynthia walks out to the edge. She begins her operatic warbling. When the camera moves behind her, we see the theater is empty, but an applause rings out when the song ends, and we see it was activated by Jules operating the mixer from the deck in the mezzanine. He walks slowly down the stairs and toward the stage. He admits that, in case she already sensed it, that wasn't a stock audience recording, it was the crowd from the night he recorded. He assures her this is the only copy, and she will not have to compromise on her principles after all. The recording is hers, and he begs for her forgiveness.
He says, "This is my gift to you." It's like, what?
Fuck you.
Yeah, my gift to you.
You stole this from me. She's disappointed to learn that Jules is responsible for the piracy, but admittedly curious to hear for the first time a recording of herself. And sure enough, the recording obliges with Jules's near-studio quality recording of Eben no andro lontana from the opera La Wally, French for The Wally. When her voice joins the music, she and Jules kiss on stage, an apparent forgiveness, and the camera rises high in the venue looking down on the stage, and we freeze frame for the credits to roll. The titles at the end look like original titles from the early 80s because they have that subtle shiver of practical optical effects. The motion was never perfectly smooth before digital titles. The biggest difference between the book and the film, a significant change, is that Jules does not return the tape to Cynthia. He sells it to the highest bidder and splits the money with Gorodish.
No.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, that's terrible.
That's how the original book goes.
Oh.
Gorodish already got a case full of fucking silver.
And he doesn't give a fuck about money. Like, he threw a bunch of money out the window. He doesn't care about money.
Weird.
Yeah, I guess I prefer this version.
Definitely. I think this was pretty cool. This is a first film from the director. And so I think to come out with this much story and so complicated and have it still make sense, notwithstanding issues where we had trouble telling people apart occasionally. Yeah. Maybe that wouldn't be as difficult for French people to do.
Well, that's what I was going to say is, like, I think that processing a complex plot like this while reading everything and not hearing it, verbally, like, is pretty hard.
Yeah,
so,
it makes a difference that you're not looking at the faces the whole time. So
exactly.
Then you're missing when people look similar but are different people.
Yeah, exactly. So, like, but that part aside, I think this was a phenomenally well done movie.
Yeah.
It was really beautifully shot. Like, all the cinematography, the colors, everything was just really beautiful.
And I don't know how much of that is like very intense color correction from the recent remaster of it, but it really looks anachronistically good. It looks like a modern day movie.
It looks so good that if you had asked me when it was made, I would have said late 90s.
Yeah, or I would have even said if it's a French film, like if that played at Cannes this year, I would believe that you shot it this year.
Yeah.
And that must be Dominique Pinon's son because he looks so much like him, but I've never seen him so young.
Yeah. But I can see how this film would be like a precursor to like the Jean-Pierre Jeunet type film.
Exactly. Yeah, sure.
With the, just the way it's shot, the colors and all of that. It's obviously not like, it's got a little bit of absurdity in it. Like he does, with wearing the mask while cutting onions and stuff like that.
Yeah, I love that moment.
It's not quite as absurd as something like, Amelie or Delicatessen or anything like that. But like, it definitely has that vibe to it.
Yeah,
because they also have Dominique Pinon.
Yeah, they do. They do. The second I saw him, I'm like, oh.
But it reminds me of like Garden State and these movies where they're like every location, in addition to like fitting the story, also has to be like extravagant and bizarre in some way. And I think that it's all very complimentary. None of it feels like it fits together oddly. I feel like the story is small enough in terms of this guy did bad stuff. There's a tape of it. He wants the tape back. We don't even know we have it. And then once we do know we have it, we need to keep it away from him.
Well, yeah. What I like is like the misunderstanding of that there's two separate recordings.
Right.
And two separate groups who are willing to do whatever it takes.
Well, I thought there was a two birds, one stone situation here where you could have let the commissioner destroy Cynthia's recording and have the Taiwanese people, without even listening to it, put out a mass-produced copies, like thousands of copies of this testimony, and somehow like accidentally dump it on the black market. And people are like, what the fuck is this? This isn't a song. Yeah. Why did you call it that? And she's like devastated when she hears that her song was released because they like raced it out to the shelves. And then she finds out like, oh, they didn't put what I thought they did. And then the commissioner gets arrested and the lady's like has, she gets her life back because she doesn't have to worry about this black market tape out there.
I was totally surprised because just from the title, and like it's like, oh, it's a French film called Diva. It's like,
yeah, that was exactly my reaction.
Like, and it starts off kind of that way with like he's listening to the music and he's obsessed with her. It's just like, okay. But then we start getting into like some craziness. Like people are getting stabbed on the streets and there's some foot chases. And it's like, all right.
Yeah, at the beginning I was like, is it going to be like Opera Paradiso? Yeah. It's like this kid, it's like just about the love of opera and music the whole time. It's like, I don't want to look into all this stuff.
Though towards the end, I didn't realize how invested I was because the subtitles just stopped.
Oh, because no one's talking anymore?
No, they just, people were talking. But
your subtitles cut out?
They just cut out. I was like, no,
I want to know what happens.
When I started watching it, the subtitles were off by like 6 seconds. And so I kept adjusting them and they kept falling off again until I was like, I'm switching to a different commentary or different subtitle track. And the second one was fine. It was perfect.
Yeah, it was it was right in the scenes in the garage when
everyone's trading places and stuff.
Yeah, it's like hold on, I need to know what's happening. This is the climax of the movie here.
Yeah. So you eventually got him back, I assume.
Yeah. I just basically like I kept switching through different subtitles and they were all missing or wrong, but then I was like, oh, I just stopped it and went back into it and it was fine. But it was funny because I was so frantic to know what happens.
Yeah.
Because I really enjoyed this film a lot. I think it was a good kind of like thriller, and I think I really liked how they played, because I don't know not much about the actress who plays Cynthia.
Yeah.
But I liked that her French accent was authentically American French.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Well, she is an American who also speaks French and does professional opera singing. Like she's basically playing herself.
Right. But I don't know if when she speaks French normally, if she speaks it more authentically or
with an American accent
versus like the Brad Pitt grass.
Yeah. Well, she definitely like had some solid straight French when she's having the conversations with Jules that she's very proficient in the language. It's not like she's struggling through it or like grasping for words.
No. She knows all the words, but her pronunciation is not French.
Yeah.
It's just she's just saying the words as if she's in a high school French class.
Right. But yeah, no, I really enjoyed it. I think the whole cast was great. And I think the Gorodish character, the puzzler guy, became exactly who I wanted him to be from the beginning. But like when it first starts, you're like, oh, is this guy going to be like super jealous asshole, especially when he
Yeah.
that first conversation in the bath where he's like, if you ever do that again, I'm going to dump you in the
back in Vietnam.
Yeah, I'm going to dump you in Vietnam in the back streets, and you're going to get murdered out there. And then after that, he's like so nice the whole time.
I think it's hard too when you're doing the subtitles because you're reading it at a different rate, which you're hearing things.
Sure,
so
yeah.
You're not picking up on tone. So if that tone that he was saying
it could have been clearly a joke,
playful or joking, or just like, oh, okay, he's being
especially
ridiculous.
Since her response is basically like, yeah, I had a shitty day too, I'll put on some music for you. Like, she's not like, oh my god, please don't, thank you so much for letting me stay here. But then that he turns into like the wolf, like he can get places instantly, and he can just knock people out without touching them. It's like he's got bat shark repellent. Yeah, it's insane what he's able to do, and that he's like thinks so far ahead that he's like, okay, well, I am also an established surgeon, and I don't care about money. I have that superpower.
Yeah, he's like, hey, let me perform emergency surgery on you in the backseat
in a
of my
moving
Citroen.
vehicle. Drive as fast as you can. I want to see what kind of bumps I can do this over.
I do think it's interesting that if he and Alba are the main characters of the books, that like in this movie he's really a secondary character. He's not the main character.
Or
Jules
he's
is.
like a Sherlock and Alba is like the Watson of the books. And it's kind of like...
But when you do a Sherlock and Watson sort of situation, like in a movie, you establish them as the main characters.
That's
I'm just
true.
saying, like, Jules is our main character here.
That's true.
And he... And at no point do we explain these other two.
So it feels more like an Agatha Christie thing where it's like, we have Miss Marple as the main character, but she's also in her hotel room the whole time, just like talking to people about what happened. And then eventually she'll show up at the party at the end and tell everybody who killed who. But she's not at the center of the story that's unfolding. She just comes in at the end and tells everybody what happened.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a fun character, and I really would like to, with this cast even, would like to have seen at least one of those films adapted, or one of the other books adapted from that series, just to see what that would feel like to have these characters in a new story. But yeah, I really enjoyed it. Big thumbs up for me.
Yeah, big thumbs up.
Yeah, thumbs up for me.
Very pleasant surprise for the year. What were we thinking Letterboxd on this one?
So I have it at number 4 out of 60.
Wow.
Mine is below Mephisto, but above Death Trap. My top 5 are 3 of my top 5 are foreign films now. Got Das Boot and Mephisto and now Diva.
Part of that is probably because
it's the best of the best coming out from these other countries.
Well, that's part of it, yes, because if it's going to make it to a domestic release, then it's probably better than most of their stuff.
Yeah.
But also because this part of the year in America is a dumping ground for like domestic releases. And so an American movie that came out in February or April is not going to be a good movie probably by default most of the time.
Right.
And these are awards movies that like did really well in their own countries at the end of last year, and now they're coming out at just like randomly when they're like, well, it's pretty good, but it's foreign, so people don't want to watch a movie that's foreign.
Right. So top of my list is all the foreign films for the year.
Richard, what are you thinking?
I have it at number 8, which puts it below Death Watch but above Venom.
Okay. I have it at 9th, which is just under Evil Under the Sun and just above Porky's. Which I know you guys think is crazy that I have that so high, but I like that movie. Apologies in advance because I'm not great with foreign titles for discussing the credits extensively. I don't know these people as well, and I don't know which films and TV shows were important there. So I'm going to miss some important stuff, but I try to touch on a lot of it. So our director here was Jean-Jacques Beineix. This was his feature directorial debut, but he later directs The Moon in the Gutter and Betty Blue. Before this, he'd worked as an assistant director on Jerry Lewis's The Day the Clown Cried, which I think is finally coming out soon. That's the one where he's like a clown during the Holocaust and was hidden forever. The writer here was Daniel Odier for the novel, but he goes by Delacorta in the original publication. Not much else I recognize from his books. The adaptation was done by Jean Van Hamme. Nothing else I recognized. Philippe Rousselot was the cinematographer. Later he lights The Bear for Quest for Fire director Jean-Jacques Beineix. And then he stuck around in the States to light Dangerous Liaisons, Henry and June, A River Runs Through It, Mary Riley, The People vs. Larry Flint, Remember the Titans, Big Fish, Constantine, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, Sherlock Holmes 1 and 2 with Robert Downey Jr., and more recently The Nice Guys. Same DP. The editor here was Marie-Joseph Yoyat. She previously cut Truffaut's The 400 Blows, and between that and this, one of the Emmanuel sequels, but nothing else I recognized. Surely my failing. Frédéric André played Jules. I'm embarrassed to say that the only title that jumped out for me was a 1982 TV movie called The Facts of Life Goes to Paris. It's the only other thing I recognized from Jules's credits. Richard Bohringer played Serge Gorodish. The only other title of his I've seen was Peter Greenaway's The Cook, the Thief, His Wife, and Her Lover, in which he plays the titular cook.
Oh, okay. That's, the director of that is
Peter Greenaway. He did like A Z and Two Knots, and yeah, good stuff. I really like his movies. Patrick Floersheim played Zatopek. Before this, he was a pilot in Moonraker, uncredited. He shows up in Roman Polanski's Frantic in '88, but most memorably, he's Santa Claus in the 1989 Christmas horror film Deadly Games. He also voices Captain Barbossa in some of the Kingdom Hearts games, and Nick Greaves in Far Cry 2. That's the guy who's catching up with the subway. He does the voice of Barbossa in some Kingdom Hearts games. Dominique Pinon played Le Curé, or the priest, or Pinon, whatever you want to call him. This is his first film. He was reunited with Zatopek actor Floersheim in Polanski's Frantic, but Dominique is likely the most familiar face in the film, since he's been cast in nearly every Jean-Pierre Jeunet film, including Delicatessen, Alien Resurrection, City of Lost Children, Amelie, Very Long Engagement, Micmacs, and probably a bunch more since I lost track of Jeunet's career. But I liked all of those. That's my fault. Wilhelmina Fernandez was Cynthia Hawkins. Like I mentioned before, she's an accomplished opera singer. This is her first and only film appearance. Raymond Aquillon played Abdullah. He's also Elias in Mr. Frost, starring Jeff Goldblum. Eugene Berthier doesn't have a name associated with his appearance in the film, but he reunites with Dominique Pinon in Amelie. Nane Gurman played La Vie Dame, who also shows up in The City of Lost Children. Brigitte Lahaye plays La Fille dont la jupe s'est I think. And she's also in Henry and June. That's everybody. That's everybody I got because I'm not going to embarrass myself any further. I think that's everything for Diva. If you have any thoughts you'd like to share, you can find all our socials at linktree/vintagevideopod. If you enjoy what we're doing, consider giving us a review on iTunes. I don't think it helps visibility, but it's good for morale. And if you really like the show, maybe you should join our Patreon campaign at patreon.com/vintagevideopodcast for access to all our monthly 70s reviews and a hand in choosing next month's film. Patrons are currently choosing between Brannigan, Deep Red, Escape to Witch Mountain, Funny Lady, The Great Waldo Pepper, Mirror, Monty Python and the Holy Grail, Rancho Deluxe, Rosebud, Tommy, Terror of Mechagodzilla, or The Yakuza for a 50th anniversary review next month. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope you'll join us next time when we'll be discussing If You Could See What I Hear, which IMDb describes like so: a light comedy/love story based on the life of blind musician Tom Sullivan, who we last saw playing a piano on an airplane in Airport 77. We leave you now with a trailer for If You Could See What I Hear.
Think of all the beautiful girls standing around with their panties on all alone, waiting for a band of stout-hearted men to whisk them off to the catacombs to some far-off land. Let the groping begin!
Tom Sullivan is an all-American guy.
Come along, I'll show you to your rooms. I tell you, you won't see a prettier view than that, Mr. Sullivan.
My, that is a lovely view, isn't it?
If You Could See What I Hear.
Not nice to make fun of sighted people.
Rated PG. Now showing at a theater near you. See your newspaper for showtimes.